Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it so casually, I almost thought I misheard her. We were standing behind the mall after her shift, the air thick with the mix of perfume testers she always carried home from her cosmetic counter. She was tired, distracted, tapping her nails against her iPhone like she was waiting for someone else to text. And then she dropped it. You want closeness? You'll get it when you deserve it. Not shouted, not angry, just bored, like a manager brushing off a customer complaint she'd heard 1,000 times. And something in me shut off right there. Not loud, not visible, just a click deep inside, like a breaker tripping in a quiet room. I didn't argue. I didn't ask what she meant. I just stopped speaking. She walked ahead of me toward the parking lot where her coworker, the new kid, always lingered a little too close to her car. I noticed him leaning against the door, pretending to scroll on his phone, pretending not to watch her walk. He always offered to drive her home after closing shifts so she wouldn't walk alone. And she always took the long route back to me, smelling like Bath & Body Works vanilla mist instead of the floral scent she used to wear. I didn't say anything then either. On the way home, she talked about how exhausted she was, how long the day had been, how the new trainee just needed guidance. I drove in silence, thinking about the nights she fell asleep in front of Netflix before I could even ask how she was. Thinking about how I used to pick up groceries at Walmart after my warehouse shifts so she wouldn't have to. Thinking about how she stopped touching me in the same week she started wearing a new shade of lipstick she said she found on Amazon. The pieces had been there for months. I just hadn't lined them up. That night, while she showered, I stepped onto our balcony and watched the parking lot below, replaying her words. You'll get closeness when you deserve it. It wasn't the cruelty of it that hit hardest. It was the ownership. As if connection was her currency and I had somehow fallen behind on payments. As if affection was a reward for obedience. When she came to bed, she turned away immediately, the glow of her phone lighting her face. I saw the corner of a message pop up, a name I recognized from the store. She didn't notice me looking. She didn't even check if I was there. And that was the first night I realized I had stopped asking for anything at all. The first real shift happened on a Thursday night, though it didn't feel dramatic at the time. It started with one of her co-workers, an older woman named Marlene, catching me in the mall hallway while I waited for my wife to finish closing the register. She looked at me the way people look when they want to warn you, but don't want to be the one who says too much. She asked how my week was, then lowered her voice and mentioned that the new trainee had been staying late again, helping my wife with inventory she usually handled alone. She said it lightly, almost like a joke, but her eyes held the weight of something unspoken. Before I could respond, she excused herself, leaving me standing there with a truth I wasn't ready to claim. When my wife finally came out, she was flushed, too cheerful for someone who'd spent all day dealing with returns and impatient customers. She didn't see me at first. She was texting someone, smiling down at her screen. When she finally looked up, surprise flickered across her face, like she hadn't expected me to still be there. She said she didn't hear me call her name, though I hadn't said a word. On the drive home, she talked about nothing that mattered and everything that didn't. She mentioned how the store was rearranging their display table, how the trainee was catching on fast, how her manager praised them both for staying late. I kept my hands steady on the wheel of my Dodge Ram, knowing that after tonight I would only call it the truck. The way she spoke, light and careless, told me the story she wasn't giving words to. She didn't notice how quiet I'd become. She didn't notice anything at all. That night, her phone kept lighting up with messages she refused to open near me. She angled the screen away with the ease of someone who had done it 100 times. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. She sprayed herself with that same Bath & Body Works mist before bed, the one that had started to feel like a wall instead of a scent. She said she was too tired again. She turned on Netflix like it was a habit she couldn't break, letting the noise fill the space where we used to talk. Her eyes stayed open just long enough for another message to come through. She smiled at it. Then she rolled away from me. That was the moment I realized silence wasn't the absence of sound. It was a decision. And for the first time, I felt myself starting to make it. The proof didn't come all at once. It never does. It comes in quiet pieces, the kind that only makes sense when you finally stop defending what's already gone. For me, it started with her schedule. She used to come home right after closing, tired but talkative, unloading her day while I made something simple for us to eat. Lately, she'd been coming in an hour later, sometimes more, always with a reason rehearsed just enough to sound true. Inventory ran long. Corporate sent new guidelines. The trainee needed help. I didn't argue. I didn't even nod. I just let her speak into the air like she was reporting to someone who no longer existed. One night after my warehouse shift, I stopped by Walmart on the way home. It used to be our routine, me grabbing groceries so she didn't have to. But that night, walking out to the parking lot, I saw her car turning onto the main road a full 40 minutes before she said her shift ended. She didn't see me. She was too busy laughing at something on her phone, her face glowing in the darkness. I stayed where I was, clutching a bag of things she used to ask for, feeling the kind of clarity that doesn't hurt at first. It just freezes. At home, I noticed the small things stacking up. A lipstick shade I'd never seen before sitting on the bathroom counter with an Amazon receipt still tucked underneath. A new scent from Bath & Body Works she sprayed before leaving the house, never before coming home. A pair of earrings I knew I hadn't bought her. Each detail was its own quiet confession. I didn't confront her. I didn't ask. Asking would have implied I still believed her answers mattered. The final piece came from something she forgot to hide. Her phone, left face up on the kitchen table while she stepped outside to take a call. A notification appeared, just a name and a heart. Not mine. Not even close. The trainee. The same kid she said needed guidance. He didn't need guidance. He needed access, and she'd given him both. When she came back inside, she didn't notice me standing there. She didn't notice anything except her phone, which she grabbed like it held her pulse. She smiled at the screen and walked past me without a word. And that was the precise moment my expression changed, though she never saw it. I didn't react. I didn't breathe differently. I just felt the ground shift beneath me, and for the first time, I realized I wasn't the one being left behind. I was the one stepping away. The disappearance didn't happen the night I planned it. It happened the night I stopped needing a plan. She came home late again, carrying that cloud of Bath & Body Works sweetness she thought covered the truth. I was sitting on the couch, the TV on but muted, Netflix loading its endless carousel of shows we used to watch together. She barely looked at me. She said her shift ran long. She said the trainee needed an extra set of hands again. She said a lot of things, but none of them were meant for me. They were placeholders, noise to fill the space where honesty used to live. I watched her move around the apartment with a lightness I hadn't seen in months. She hummed to herself as she unpacked a small Amazon box she must have picked up on her way home. A new lipstick, a shade I'd never seen her wear around me. She didn't even try to hide it this time. Maybe she thought I wasn't paying attention anymore. Maybe she was right. Later, when she slipped into bed and turned her back to me, I didn't feel anger or betrayal. I felt distance. Cold, clean distance. She scrolled her phone in the dark until a message lit the room with a soft glow. She smiled at it and locked the screen quickly, as if protecting something delicate. She didn't say goodnight. She didn't have to. We weren't sharing nights anymore, just walls. The next morning, she left early for her usual Starbucks stop before work. She didn't kiss me goodbye or even ask if I was awake. She just grabbed her bag, sprayed one last mist of that vanilla scent, and walked out like the apartment was a hotel room she no longer intended to revisit. As soon as the door clicked shut, the silence felt different. Not heavy, not painful, just final. I got up, pulled out the boxes from the closet, and started packing. My clothes, my tools, the documents she never bothered to learn the locations of. I moved slowly, not rushing, not hiding, just collecting the pieces of the life I had built while she crafted another one behind my back. I loaded everything into the truck, the same one I used to pick her up on rainy evenings when she didn't want to walk to her car. I took one last look at the apartment, not to say goodbye, but to confirm I didn't feel anything at all. When she came back, she would return to a quiet that finally matched her own. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send a message. I didn't know sound to someone who had lived so comfortably in my silence. I simply disappeared. I didn't go far after I left. That was the part no one would ever understand unless they'd lived it. Most people think disappearing means distance. For me, it meant clarity. I parked the truck on the far end of an old industrial lot near my warehouse job, a place where no one asked questions and no one cared who came and went. I turned off my phone, placed it face down on the seat, and let the silence settle. It wasn't running. It wasn't hiding. It was stepping outside the circle she'd built around me and realizing how small it really was. For the first time in months, I could breathe without checking the door for her footsteps or waiting for her mood to shift the temperature of the room. I sat there long enough to hear my heartbeat slow back to something human. Then I started thinking, not about her, but about him. The trainee. The kid who stayed late for reasons that had nothing to do with inventory. I didn't need revenge. That wasn't the kind of man I was. But distance gives you a sharper angle, and from that angle, I could see him clearly. He had a car payment he was behind on. I remembered my wife mentioning it once, laughing about how he always complained during breaks. He also had a habit of clocking out later than his actual shift, a small violation most stores ignore until someone points it out. And he'd been flirting with another girl in their department, someone who wore heartbreak a little too openly on her face the last time I passed through the mall. I didn't need to expose him. I just needed to let the right pieces fall in the right direction. During my lunch break at the warehouse, I sent an anonymous note to their store manager. Nothing dramatic, just enough information to make them check security footage and time logs. Enough to make them look closer at a kid who'd gotten too comfortable. I didn't sign it. I didn't trace it back to me. I didn't even stay to see what happened next. When I drove past the mall that evening, I saw the manager and two other employees talking near the back entrance. The kid stood with them, shoulders tight, eyes down, holding his phone like a lifeline. My wife wasn't there. She must have still been inside, unaware that her new world had just tilted. I didn't stop. I didn't watch. I didn't need to. The collapse wasn't my doing. It was the natural consequence of a structure built on borrowed attention. And for the first time, I understood the power of simply stepping out of the frame. The social fallout didn't reach me directly. It drifted toward me in pieces, carried by people who didn't even know I was gone. 2 days after I disappeared, I stopped at Walmart to grab a few things for the motel room I'd taken. I kept my head down, moved quickly, stayed invisible. But the universe has a way of delivering messages when you least expect them. Near the self-checkout, I saw Marlene, the same coworker who'd hinted at the truth before everything snapped. She didn't see me. She was talking to another woman from the mall, both of them leaning in close like the air around them had something sharp in it. They said my wife showed up to work looking like she hadn't slept. They said she spent half the morning checking her phone, stepping away from customers, texting without replies. They said the trainee hadn't shown up at all. One of them even laughed under her breath. Not cruel, just knowing. She really thought no one would notice, the woman said. And Marlene nodded like the final piece of a puzzle had fallen into place. I walked past them without being recognized. That was the advantage of distance. You become a shadow in the places you once existed fully. I didn't slow down. I didn't listen for more. I already had enough. Back at the motel, I sat on the edge of the bed, letting their words settle. Not the parts about her, or even him, but the way people around them had reacted. The shift was subtle, but unmistakable. People weren't judging her for cheating. They were stepping back because she'd lost control. The woman who always curated attention. Her makeup perfect, her confidence rehearsed, her perfume marking every room. Now walked through her own job with eyes on her for all the wrong reasons. And none of those eyes belonged to me anymore. I imagined her going home that night, unlocking the apartment door and finding the same silent emptiness she'd created for months. No truck outside, no boots by the door, no groceries on the counter. Just her and the echo she used to push on me every time she said she was tired or not in the mood or busy with work. I wondered if she stood in the doorway for a moment, waiting for my voice out of habit before remembering she had spent the last year teaching me not to speak. I didn't go check on her. I didn't drive by. I didn't call. I kept the phone off because peace shouldn't have to compete with noise. And the strange thing was, for the first time since I left, I realized she wasn't the one I was thinking about. I was thinking about who I was becoming without her. Isolation didn't hit her all at once. It unfolded slowly, the way ice spreads across a window at dawn. Quiet, creeping, impossible to ignore once you finally see it. I didn't have to be there to witness it. People around her carried the story without realizing I was listening. At work, during my warehouse shift, one of the drivers mentioned he'd stopped by the mall earlier. He said my wife looked off, like someone had unplugged the light she normally projected. He said she kept stepping into the back hallway, checking her phone, coming out looking worse each time. I didn't ask questions. He offered the information like small-town gossip. To him, it meant nothing. To me, it meant the world was finally mirroring what I had lived with for months. Later that evening, I drove the truck to the far edge of the mall parking lot. Not close enough to be seen, but close enough to observe the shift change. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't longing. It was witnessing the aftermath of a choice she thought she controlled. She walked out with two coworkers who usually orbited her like satellites. This time, they kept a distance. Not cruel, just cautious, like being near her carried unwanted attention. She tried to speak to them, her hands gesturing the way they always did when she wanted to reclaim a moment, but they didn't bite. They nodded politely, then peeled away toward their cars. She stood there alone in the glow of the overhead lights, hugging her arms around herself despite the warm air. She checked her phone again. No messages. No calls. She typed something quickly, then waited. Nothing. She lowered the phone slowly, like the weight of it had doubled. Watching her, I felt no triumph. No satisfaction. Just confirmation that distance changes everything, including the way people see the person you once defended. She looked around the lot, as if expecting the trainee's car to pull up. It didn't. Whatever consequences my anonymous note had set in motion, they'd reached him fully. He wasn't coming, and she knew it. I could see it in the way her shoulders slumped, in the way she exhaled like she was bracing for the kind of loneliness she used to hand to me nightly, without hesitation. I stayed in the truck, far enough that she couldn't sense me, but close enough to witness the truth. She was finally feeling the silence she had forced on me. She walked to her car slowly, like each step revealed another piece of the reality she'd tried to bury under perfume and late-night messages. As she drove off, I didn't follow. I didn't watch her taillights fade. I simply turned the key, letting the engine settle into its steady rumble. I wasn't part of her life anymore, but I was close enough to see that the collapse wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, personal, earned. And in that distance, I realized something even clearer. She wasn't looking for me. She was looking for the version of herself that didn't exist without me. Confrontation didn't come the way I expected. It wasn't a dramatic scene or a late-night ambush. It arrived on a quiet Sunday afternoon when I stopped by the warehouse to pick up an extra shift. I'd kept my phone off since leaving, letting the world shrink down to the rhythm of work and silence. But when I walked out toward the loading docks, I saw her standing near the chain-link fence, gripping the metal like she needed it to stay upright. She must have asked around, followed a trail of half-guesses until someone finally said they'd seen me there. She looked smaller, like the light she used to hold so effortlessly had dimmed. She didn't call out my name. She didn't rush toward me. She just watched, waiting for any sign that I would acknowledge her presence. I didn't. I walked toward the truck with the same calm I used to carry through long warehouse nights, the silence wrapping around me like armor. She took a step forward anyway, her voice barely above a whisper as she told me she'd been worried, that she didn't understand why I left, that we needed to talk. But even from a distance, I could hear the cracks in her tone. Not anger, not confidence, something closer to fear. I stopped beside the driver's door, turned just enough to see her without facing her fully. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The perfume she always wore, once heavy, insistent, was faint now, like she'd forgotten to reapply it. Her makeup was uneven, not the polished layer she used to step into each morning. She had been unraveling, slowly and quietly, and now she wanted me to stitch her back together. She tried again, saying she didn't recognize the man I'd become. That was the closest thing to honesty she'd given me in months. She was right. I wasn't the same man who begged for closeness while she scrolled through Netflix and brushed me aside with that line about deserving intimacy. I wasn't the man who carried groceries from Walmart to soften her mood, or the man who pretended her late shifts were just hard work. I wasn't even the man who packed his things while she sipped Starbucks and believed she still held control. I'd stepped out of that version of myself like an old coat. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't list the things I'd seen or the messages she thought I'd missed. I simply gave her the truth she'd spent months avoiding, that there was nothing left to fix because she had broken something she never truly valued. I said it quietly, almost conversationally, so it would land clean. The man she'd known was gone long before I walked out. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue, but no words came. That was the moment she finally understood. I wasn't refusing to come back. I was no longer someone who could be returned to. The collapse didn't hit her in one blow. It came in waves, each one catching her off guard, each one pulling her further from the version of herself she'd built through attention and easy laughter. I wasn't there for most of it, but people talk without realizing who's listening. One of the warehouse guys mentioned he saw her sitting alone in the mall food court after her shift, staring at her untouched drink like she didn't know what to do with her own hands. Another said she'd asked around about me again, this time without the confidence she once used to mask every insecurity. Her voice was thinner, he said. Not broken, just emptied. I didn't go looking for her, but I couldn't stop the images that surfaced when the noise around me settled. Snapshots of moments she must have replayed in the quiet she now lived in. The nights she pretended to fall asleep early in front of Netflix while texting the trainee under the blanket. The way she used to spray that new Bath & Body Works scent before leaving the house, not noticing how different it felt when the purpose behind it changed. The sudden interest in things from Amazon she never wore around me. The little shifts I once ignored because I trusted her more than I trusted my instincts. Now, I imagined those memories reversing their direction, playing not as her triumphs, but as the clues she wished she hadn't left so openly. Memories have a way of cutting deeper when you face them alone. I heard she tried talking to the trainee one last time, maybe to pull him back into orbit, maybe to convince herself she hadn't gambled everything for nothing. He didn't respond. His absence wasn't loud, but it was final. Whatever consequences fell on him after my anonymous note, they hadn't left room for her to cling to him. He wasn't her escape anymore. Just a reminder of a choice she couldn't undo. At home, she must have walked into the apartment and seen the space the way I used to see it. Crowded with silence, too many shadows, too many reminders that love can fade long before it disappears. My side of the closet was empty. The tools I kept under the sink were gone. Even the small things, like the groceries I used to bring from Walmart after my late shifts, had vanished from the routine she once relied on without acknowledging. Maybe she sat on the edge of the bed, the same way I had the night she told me closeness was something I had to earn. Maybe she finally felt what that sentence sounded like when spoken out loud. Not power, not control, just distance. And maybe, for the first time, she understood that the version of me she pushed away had been the last person in her life who showed up without needing a reason. She had lost me long before I left. But now she could finally feel the empty space where I used to stand. I saw her one last time on a quiet evening when the sun was low enough to paint the warehouse lot in long shadows. I wasn't waiting for her. I was just finishing a shift, ready to head back to the motel where the silence didn't demand anything from me. But when I stepped outside, she was there, standing beside her car, hands clenched around her phone like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. She looked up the moment she heard the door click behind me, and for the first time since all of it began, she didn't try to hide the panic in her eyes. She didn't rush toward me. She didn't throw accusations or apologies. She took a slow step forward, almost hesitant, as if she wasn't sure she had the right to close the distance. She said she needed to talk, that everything felt wrong without me, that she'd been thinking about the past, about little things she'd brushed off without realizing what they meant. Her voice wavered when she mentioned she couldn't sleep, that every room in the apartment felt colder, that even her morning Starbucks runs didn't distract her the way they used to. She said she finally understood what she'd done. I didn't interrupt her. I didn't move closer. I leaned against the truck and let her speak, because silence has its own gravity, and she had lived too long believing she controlled it. She told me she missed the steadiness I brought into the house, the routines she never thanked me for, the nights I carried the weight of both of us while she drifted further away without noticing. She said she'd been foolish, selfish, distracted by someone who never had anything real to offer. She said losing me had shown her the truth she should have seen long before I left. When she finally stopped talking, the quiet between us felt different. Not hostile, not desperate, just honest in a way it had never been when we still lived under the same roof. She looked at me like she was bracing for punishment, for anger, for the chaos she had grown used to in other relationships. What she saw instead was distance, steady, unshaken, fully mine. I told her the simplest truth I had. I hadn't disappeared. I just stopped showing up in places where I wasn't respected. The words didn't rise or fall. They landed flat, calm, final. She didn't cry. She didn't argue. She just breathed out slowly, like something inside her finally broke in a clean line. And in that moment, I realized forgiveness didn't mean returning. It meant no longer carrying the weight she had tried to hand me. I didn't walk away to hurt her. I walked away because I had finally remembered my own worth. And when I turned toward the truck, I felt her watching, not the man she once dismissed, but the man she'd never really known until he chose himself over her silence. Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories.